Hey everyone, welcome to today's Explainer. Today we're unpacking a really powerful story out of Chicago. It's a deep dive into absolute trust, absolute betrayal, and the very real consequences of our actions. You know, for those of us pouring our literal blood, sweat, and tears into our demanding careers and families, the lessons hidden in this narrative, they hit incredibly close to home. Okay, let's dive into this, because it brings up a question that strikes right at the core of human vulnerability. What happens when the person you trust most becomes the person who hurts you most? When you give someone your absolute, unquestioning faith, what happens when that illusion just shatters? For busy professionals out there trying to balance high-stakes corporate lives with their personal world, having the foundation of their home life crumble is pretty much the worst-case scenario. Let's look at exactly how this unfolded in our source material.
Act 1. A life built on trust.
Right, so every story of betrayal starts with a foundation of faith. Our source brings us to Chicago, the home of John and his wife Emma. John is described as an incredibly hardworking guy. He's a dedicated corporate employee at a massive company. And look, for any busy executive watching this, John's routine is going to sound super familiar. I mean, he was dedicating his days, his nights, just grinding through the relentless corporate machine with one singular goal in mind: keeping his family happy and well provided for.
And this brilliantly illustrates the stark contrast developing right in their own home. Every single morning, despite the insane demands of his corporate job, John would wake up early, cook breakfast for Emma, and head to the office with unquestioning trust. He's doing the work. But meanwhile, Emma was pulling away. She was completely ignoring the immense effort her husband was putting into their life together.
Act 2. The hidden betrayal.
So, while John was busy building their future and managing his demanding career, the illusion of their perfect marriage actually began to fracture right behind his back. Basically, as soon as John would leave for his demanding job, Emma started inviting a friend named Michael over. At month 1, it was just a friendship. But by month 3, that intimacy had grown significantly. As the months rolled by, Emma became completely blind to her husband's love and the massive sacrifices he was making at work, literally for her benefit. By the time we hit the 8-month mark, the situation was obvious enough that even outsiders started catching on.
And there is a tremendous piece of dramatic irony here. An elderly neighbor actually approached Emma and delivered this stark, really profound warning. She said, "Daughter, do not break the heart of the person who has trusted you." That is a tremendous piece of wisdom, right? But Emma, she completely dismissed it, didn't take it seriously at all. And meanwhile, John, totally unaware of all this, just kept working harder and harder, genuinely thinking he was providing his wife with every happiness in the world.
The shattered illusion.
Of course, blind dedication can only last so long. For John, the catalyst was a classic executive requirement: the long business trip. His company needed him to travel extensively. But right before leaving for this extended trip, John started to notice things, troubling signs. But, and honestly, this is a masterclass in emotional regulation for any leader or professional, he didn't make a hasty emotional decision. He didn't blow up in anger. Instead, he decided to meticulously, calmly uncover the truth. A few days later, he found the definitive proof of his suspicions. His heart was completely broken by the very woman he trusted the most.
I actually want you to pause and think about this for a second. What do you do when your ultimate trust is broken? Seriously, when you are managing high-stress situations at work, leading teams, and suddenly the absolute foundation of your personal life collapses, how do you react? Do you explode? Do you seek immediate revenge? The way John handles this is incredibly revealing.
Act 3. Moving forward with dignity. In the aftermath, John's reaction to his shattered world wasn't explosive, destructive anger. No, he chose to remain incredibly calm. He actually channeled all of that emotional devastation back into himself and his professional life. He focused heavily on his career, worked hard on his personal development, and successfully built a completely new future, moving forward with his life. For busy executives, this level of emotional intelligence and resilience is absolutely vital. He didn't let a personal tragedy derail his professional potential. Emma, however, was left with a painful realization as time passed. She realized she had lost a man who truly, genuinely loved her. But it was way too late. John had moved on, and she was left to live with the heavy, unchangeable burden of regret.
The ultimate price of trust. So, we've seen the specific narrative of John and Emma, but now let's seamlessly shift to the overarching lesson here. The crucial point is this: trust, or barossa, as the source eloquently puts it, is a treasure. And it's a unique kind of treasure because once it's broken, it can never be perfectly restored to its original, pristine state. The ultimate moral of this story is that relationships don't just run on love, they run on the engine of trust.
When that engine fails, even the absolute strongest bonds shatter. You just cannot simply glue a shattered bond back together and expect it to hold the exact same weight.
When we pull back and look at the core takeaways from this powerful text, it fundamentally reminds us that relationships run on trust. Without it, you really have nothing, because broken trust will inevitably destroy even the strongest of bonds. And perhaps the most important insight for those of us caught up in the demanding, frantic pace of executive life is to constantly value those who sacrifice for you. If someone is working tirelessly, giving you their absolute trust, and dedicating their efforts to your happiness, do not take them for granted. Recognize their sacrifices every single day.
I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. Look, whether you are navigating complex deals in the boardroom or navigating life in your own home, trust is your most valuable currency. Look at the people who support your ambitions, the ones who have your back when you're grinding through your absolute busiest days. How are you honoring the trust placed in you by those who love you most? Take a moment today to appreciate them before it becomes a lesson learned too late. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer.